My man.
How are we, boys?
Mr. Catterall, thanks so much for joining us, my man.
Look at you, lads, eh? Look at this.
Look at you.
He's grown all the stuff that's supposed to be on the top of your head on his face, mate. What's going on here?
Well, I mean, look, we've talked about these hair transplants, me and you, for quite a while, actually, haven't we? I mean,
mate, I can't look at me. I can't talk about it. It's all there.
No, but it was something that you were talking about doing. Well, I went and got a second one.
Right.
That's why the hair's short again, because it was so beautiful at the front. And I know you were so jealous about it. And then all of a sudden you wanted to get involved and you wanted to be a part of it and all that. And I didn't know if you'd done it yet or not. But as this grew, the back went. So I had to go again.
Greedy, mate. That's what it is. Greedy.
I look like Chewbacca by the time we finish. But anyway, mate, listen, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast, Ads. How's things, mate? How's life?
It's good, man. We had a bit of positive news yesterday, didn't we? From old Bozza.
Yeah.
We might be able to get back in arenas sometime soon with some fans and witness some events, which I think we're all clambering for. So, yeah, man. Yesterday was a bit of a pick-me-up. Up until that point, it's a bit of a... You're plodding along through the monotony of every single day looking exactly the same, aren't you? But yesterday you think to yourself, okay, there's light at the end of the tunnel now. I might get to see some fights in action with some people screaming again.
You've been spoiled, Adam, haven't you? Because as we know, you're a massive UFC fan and you work for BT. So you've had the sort of like the pleasure, I suppose, of being in that bubble. They've had a completely different sort of model, haven't they? The way they've done it, and you've kind of stayed ticking over with that. I mean, we're predominantly sort of boxing. So last year we've had fuck all to talk about. We've been sort of, scratching the walls and trying to find guests. We've managed to keep it going. But for you as a UFC fan, that must have been a great treat, was it, to be able to see all those great fights during the lockdown?
Mate, really lucky. Like you just said, there's so many people who I'm sure listen to your show on a week-by-week basis that are in furlough situations, losing jobs and all that type of thing. I was lucky that the UFC, I think it had 6 weeks off. It had a break in March from UFC Brazil, which went behind closed doors. Then it fell off because of UFC London. Mm-hmm. And then they brought it back in May. It was back in May and they've not skipped a beat. And again, from an international point of view, we had travel restrictions going into America, so we couldn't go and cover any of the shows. But luckily, because they were doing shows, we could cover them like this on Zoom calls and all that type of stuff. So the work was still coming in. And then they came up with this mad idea of Fight Island, mate, So, yeah, they've done it 3 times now. They've been out to Abu Dhabi 3 times, and it's been absolutely mustard every single time. And you can't get better than the guys that they had. They had Masvidal the first time round. They had Habib the second time round, and they finished it off with Conor McGregor. You know what I mean? Biggest stars in the sport. Fantastic.
What was the experience like going out there, Adam? Like, look, they literally turned the whole island into Fight Island, didn't they? So it was as safe as it could possibly be. What were the loopholes that they had to overcome to get it going and make it so successful?
It's changed every time. So the first time, for anybody that's been to Yas Island, where they have the Grand Prix track and all that type of stuff, they basically, all of Yas Island was cordoned off. So all the schools were shut down, the restaurants were shut down, everything was shut down to the local people. And it was just purely for the UFC. So that was their bubble. Wow. So the whole thing was for them. And the UFC have spent, I think, the last number before Christmas was something like $13 million on COVID tests for athletes, media members, and all those types of people to go out there.
That's a huge amount, isn't it?
Mate, it's crazy. It's a crazy amount of money that they've spent on keeping that safe. The locals in Abu Dhabi, the Abu Dhabi government fund a test once a week for them whilst they're going on. Obviously, they're funding their vaccination program. So each time it's kind of changed a little bit. So the first time the whole of Yas Island was just purely UFC. I mean, we were loading it up, man. You know what I mean? Once you've been tested and you've gone through it all, you're thinking, I've got the whole island to myself on the beach, on the jet skis. Absolutely mega. Really, really good. Second time, they then started to shrink it down a little bit because obviously they wanted to bring normal life back to Abu Dhabi residents. The last time we went, there was our hotel, like where the media members were, there was the fighter hotel and then the arena. And they were the only places that you were allowed to go. And this time you weren't allowed to walk on the street or anything like that. You had to be shuttled in between all the venues. And the reason for it is because they're ahead in their vaccination program.
Yeah.
So they'd open the beaches up and they've opened the restaurants up for all the locals, and they don't want riffraff like me socializing with him. So, but the good news is that they've got to that stage now. And obviously we seem to be moving at a decent rate here. So hopefully by the next time I go to Abu Dhabi for Fight Island, which is rumored to be around April time, we should be in some type of normality there, mate.
Wow.
What was the highlight for you out there, mate? Like fight-wise, what was the best experience for you? What was the best fight? Was it Khabib? Was it McGregor? I mean, what stood out?
Anybody that covers UFC is lying if they say that the best week of their life is not a Conor McGregor fight week. It's just bonkers. This time very different, obviously with a limited amount of fans. It's the first one I've done a McGregor that's not in Vegas. Vegas is always mental when it's Conor McGregor week. So it was a little bit of a different situation. Still good. Obviously, the guy that he was fighting, I've got a lot of love and admiration for Dustin Poirier as well, who ended up getting the victory that particular night. So it's really opened up that lightweight division. So that week was mint. But for me, the highlight of the 3 Fight Island situations that we've had was Khabib. You know, everything that he went through last year with his dad sadly passing away, just the way that he was throughout the course of the week, ultra professional, the performance he put on, and then to be literally spitting distance, not that I was spitting, but spitting distance from him retiring, an iconic moment in the UFC was just absolutely unbelievable, mate. And like, yeah, the Abu Dhabi royal family in attendance and stuff. It was just the most bizarre thing that I've ever been in attendance for.
Do you think the fighters, the UFC fighters, struggle to adapt to the strange surroundings, Adam? Like in boxing, recently we've seen some really strange results, and I think it's partly maybe a result of there being no fans, no atmosphere. Yeah. As we saw Josh Warrington, he relies on his fans, doesn't he? And a week and a half ago he got taken apart. So do you think that affected the UFC guys as well? Was it strange for them to adapt?
Yeah, definitely. I think what we've seen over the last year is you've seen guys that were not necessarily what you would class as contenders just come to the fore because one, they've been willing to fight at the drop of a hat. And when they've got in there, they delivered because, I don't know, maybe it feels more like a gym scenario. I don't know, because the pressures of fight week, the media that are around them throughout the course of the week isn't as prominent as it normally is. I mean, look at the Conor McGregor fight week. That's normally a circus, absolute circus. It's buzzing with fans, buzzing with media. The world's media normally descend on a Conor McGregor fight week, and we've seen so many fighters over the years absolutely capitulate. Randomly, it was a rematch. The first time that these guys fought, like 7 years ago, that's what happened to Dustin Poirier. He was in the circus, and he just was a deer in the headlights. This time around, far more cool, far more collected. I'm sure the fan element of it played some type of part. Obviously, years and maturity and stuff like that most certainly come into it as well, and he's a better fighter now. But yeah, I think I think it's inevitable, isn't it? You know what I mean? That you are going to see the effects of not being able to perform in front of a crowd.
Sure. I think that, some of the fighters that we've seen, especially in the boxing as well, some of the fighters that feed off the crowd, they put in different performances when it's. Because in these arenas, for people that have not been in these arenas and been in the bubble, it's so eerie when the fighters are walking in because you can literally hear a pin drop. Now that favours like the guy that's the underdog or the guy that's not expected to win. He's coming in, no pressures on his shoulders, no one's there, so he treats it as a sparring session. Anybody that's sparring normally performs better sparring when they're the sort of underdog than they do when they're actually competing. But they bring that game into the ring, and with the favourites that like sort of feed off the crowd, like your Dillian Whites. And like we saw against David Avanesian and Josh Kelly and stuff like that, they feed off a crowd, and you do get a different performance. So it has been a very strange year, not just for UFC but for boxing as well, for that reason and that reason alone. I think that's why Dillian's chose to go and get a crowd in Gibraltar, 27th. He changed the date. I mean, have you looked at Wembley? Arena on Saturday night when Kelly was boxing, when they're doing that ring walk, you go there and it's just like this, because there's no noise, it does feel eerie. You just go, that must be so hard to get motivated for. And with Dillian having his career on the line here against Povetkin, he needs a win. You can sort of understand and change the date, can't you?
Mate, he's 100% on that, absolutely. And obviously with travel restrictions and various things that are out there right now, I'm not surprised at all. And we're seeing one way Herring and Frampton, I believe, aren't we? But those guys are changing the venue, going out to Dubai and what have you. Just going to what you just said about ring walks, I find that bonkers. Like, I'm watching that show at the weekend and, you know what I mean? They're coming out tunes are on. You're thinking to yourself, they're going to play to the crowd. And even the fighters, they're looking around going, well, do I walk now? I normally walk on the beat of this particular part of the tune and all this type of thing.
Yeah.
It must be a weird scenario coming out.
I thought
with
that
a
watching
ring
it. I thought that watching it, Adam, and I thought I put myself in that situation. I thought if I was there with an empty, I would pretend there was a crowd. You know what I mean?
Well,
start looking around, start like waving to people and all that. You know what I mean? Trying to get in that. I'm trying to get in that mindset. I'd sort of do something. When you just so weird, because they're making the big entrance, like you say, but there's nothing. They're coming out to nothing, and an empty room.
Even the ring announcer, like David Diamante is doing his thing, or when Buffer does his thing, and it's normally pumping. It's normally pumping it up, isn't it?
A classic example of that was a couple of weeks ago, wasn't it? Josh Warrington versus Mauricio Lara. Now Warrington's a guy that feeds off the crowd, and when he comes in, he's doing his ring walk. They're going bananas. They're probably the biggest supporters in the country, the Leeds fans. He packs the stadiums out. He couldn't get himself up for it. He said in his interview afterwards, he said, I just couldn't. I was walking to the ring and I didn't get that normal adrenaline buzz that I normally get and feeding off the crowd, and it affected his performance. And you do see it. It's like he's walking in and I go, I'm normally used to watching like 40,000 fans screaming this geezer in. And all of a sudden now he's walking in, you can see in his face, he's going, this is not right. This is like your mindset's different. Yeah.
The whole narrative around that fight as well, he's just put his belt in the bin, hasn't he? He's chasing the bigger, more legacy fights. He's been locked in a hotel as well, which is another weird situation, being locked in a hotel with your opponent in the same hotel in this weird COVID bubble. You've got to spend a couple of days in your bedroom and all this type of stuff. Never more so did anybody need fans than Josh Warrington a couple of weeks ago, man. He just needed somebody to snap him out of it and get him bang on, because he looked flat-footed and you don't normally say that about Josh. No. He's never flat from the first bell, and he just did, and he ended up playing into the hands of Lara, didn't he?
Could have been stopped a lot earlier, that fight, Adam. Do you think that fight? I mean, it's a very brave performance by Warrington, but there's a good argument it should have been stopped. Really, he wasn't at the races, was he? After that knockdown.
Yeah. Listen, I've been vocal about it. Even in the moment, I said at the end of that fourth round, I'm so surprised that fight continued. Whether Howard Foster, the referee, should have called it at that particular time, but you've got to trust the professional that's in there. He's been there, done it, and got the t-shirt as Howard Foster, and he was the closest person to Josh at that particular time. He looked into the white of his eyes, so you've kind of got to trust what he was doing. But me as a fan sat at home watching it, I'm like, he's done, man. Even I know he comes out and he does well in the fifth, but 6, 7, 8, he's not there at all. And sometimes you've got to look at, I mean, we saw some wonderful corner work at the weekend, didn't we? I thought Adam Booth was mint, and there was Ryland Charlton's corner was absolutely mint as well, pulling him out at the right time.
As well. That was the right decision, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Protect your fighter. And, I don't want to, Sean O'Hagan knows his son better than anybody, no doubt about that. But sometimes you've just got to think to yourself, save him for another day. Yeah, it's not a world title fight. He's chucked that belt in the bin. It's not a world title fight. Save him. He didn't. For me personally, he didn't need that extra 15 minutes.
I totally agree, mate. I think he should have been over. I was really strong about it, saying he should have been stopped in the fourth. Even when he went back to the corner, he was walking dodgily back to the corner, and he walked out back in the fifth round. He still weren't together. His legs still weren't right. And it's interesting. I spoke to Robert Smith about this situation. I said, Robert, look, sometimes, the corners can be too brave, and I thought the referee should have stopped the fight well before. And Robert said, well, look, if you was there and he was up close, you could see that he was all right, but he didn't look all right to me. And I think it was 4 rounds of punishment. And when you're boxing at world level like that, that's a long and hard 4 rounds, and that can affect the future of a kid's, career. If I'm totally honest, it's going to be difficult to come back from that, because he was systematically getting beaten up, wasn't he? That was the thing. It was like round after round. And as a viewer, I was watching it going, do you know what? It's a little bit uncomfortable to watch now. And I'm the biggest boxing fan ever. And everyone loves the brutality of the sport. But the bottom line is it gets to a stage where you go, well, it's not comfortable watching. So I thought it was a bad decision. But it was these fight weeks, mate, are pulling off some funny decisions, aren't they? No one expected Avanesian to win the way that he did. Although I thought Avanesian would win, I still thought it would be a close, long, hard fight. But it was about levels, really, wasn't it? At this stage of Kelly's career, I think it was too soon.
See, yeah, you're right. 100% you're right. But I kind of like the fact that they took the fight, man, because I seem to have spent the last year, particularly, maybe I've been hard, I don't know, on boxing and its matchmaking, where I'm moaning about top guys coming out of the Olympics or whatever it may be, Team GB fighters, and they're fighting guys that are well beneath them. And it's kind of just meandering along a little bit. I think long gone are the days where you need, 20, 30 fights before you're having a whack at a British title or in this case, a European title. I like that they dared. I like that they had a risk. Yeah, it was a massive jump because the kid's been in with Shane Mosley and beaten him and won a version of a world title. We get that. But I kind of like that Josh rolled the dice a little bit. And the first 3 rounds, I'm watching that going,
isn't it?
The kid looks mint, man. He looks absolutely tremendous.
Yeah,
and then
he gassed out, didn't he? He seemed to gas out. I don't know what happened to him. It just like it's all of a sudden, but from that round 4, he just had nothing left. It seemed, didn't it? And Evan was just walking him down, tough, wasn't he? Tough guy. And you could see the writing was on the wall, really, wasn't it? From that moment.
That's what champions do. Like Avanesyan in the first 3 rounds, you thought, whoa, Josh is going to get him out of there. He rocked him, and he was looking superb because he comes with bags of talent. Kelly, he's so talented. He's incredible, but Avanesyan's got that experience, man, and he knows how to fight on the gum shield. That's the difference at this stage of their careers. That Kelly's sort of like he's had 11 fights going into that, and he's not experienced it at that sort of level. Where Avanesyan goes, right, it's not working, but I'll fight on my gum shield. I'll keep forcing it, and I'll do it. As soon as Kelly got put under pressure, he went over, and from then on in, it was always downhill, and he sort of come apart, and he come apart quite quickly. And I just think that's a lot down to experience. And you're right, Adam. I think you can. It's not a loss for a fight. The way that they come back that defines a fighter's career. And this is a good, it's a good chance for Kelly now to go back, regroup, and come back a better fighter.
Yeah, I think skill set wise, he's got it, man. You look at some of the things that he does, you think, mate, you've got it. But then Avanesyan, if you listen to him and his manager throughout the course of the week, Neil Marsh, they were saying, listen, we know we're going to lose rounds against this guy. He's a Team GB fighter and he's ultra skilled. We're going to get him down the stretch because we are going to be at him. We're going to be on his chest and make him work when he doesn't want to work. If you look at all the fights where Josh Kelly's looked a bit dodgy, it's because someone's put a bit of pressure on him. They're making him do stuff when he doesn't want to necessarily do stuff. Avanesyan was mint, man. He went at him like a train from the start. Didn't let him rest. And the moment that tank started to go, he was on him and he took him out brilliantly. The big question for me is he really a welterweight, Josh? He's a big lad, isn't he? There's a lot of muscle mass there. He's got himself in wicked shape and he's cutting a lot of weight. That takes it out of you. So that's the big question, I think.
Yeah, if you look at the 2 fighters on the night, when that first bell went,
oh, mate,
I was like, fucking hell, he looks like 2 weight divisions bigger. That's why I like straight away. And then Kelly caught him in the first round and he rocked back. And I thought, Josh might be too big for him here. But Avanesyan just proved his class, stayed tight, does what he does best, tucks up tight, comes back quick. Combinations, shots, and yeah, you're right. There was another question that I asked Robert Smith, actually. I said to him, do you think that he may have been tight at weight? Do you think that could be something to do with it? Like dropping the weight, you see this, like he's flying and then all of a sudden deteriorates. So I think if he does come back, that might be something to look at for Josh Kelly. I think coming back at super welterweight might be the way forward.
Yeah, man. You don't want to be... Young lads like that, who are relying on the reflexes especially, you don't want to be depleting yourself. You need that energy, man. You need that energy to be out the way, getting out the way of stuff. And like I said, first 3.5, 4 rounds, you're looking at him going, my word. And then all of a sudden, it just started to go, and he seemed easier to catch. And Avanesyan got more confident, and then it went. Then in the 6th, it just went.
Yeah. He needs to get to a point, Adam, you're right, where he can maintain that work rate over 10 rounds, 12 rounds. If he can get to that point, he'll be a fucking world-class fighter, isn't he? Without a doubt. He's got serious skills, man. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's just one of those. He's just got to work out. He's got to work out the right way. He's got to come away from this, learn from this fight. And it's about experience, isn't it? Really, he's still relatively young for him, isn't it? Early days.
I'll tell you someone who did learn from their previous mistakes, and that was Florian Marku on the undercard. Now, we saw him get a draw last time out on Anthony Joshua's undercard on December the 12th. He gassed out after about 3 rounds, put too much into it, come away with a draw where he shouldn't have been a draw. He still won the fight in my eyes, but he regrouped, new trainer, Boxing Royal and Charlton, 50-50 fight going in. Charlton's a tough guy, tough campaigner, come up the hard way, boxing on undercard shows, etc., etc. Looked good last time out. winning that fight against, who was it? He boxed Joseph Laws.
Yeah.
Joseph Laws, and he looked sensational doing that. That was a fight I thought Laws would win. Never heard of Charlton. He come in, and he looked sensational. This was a 50-50 fight, but come on, man. What about Florian Marku? What about his performance? I mean, talk about calculated. He looked like a different fighter in there.
You see, the thing that I like about this lad, as you guys do, right? When you're speaking to these guys, you want them to have personality. You want them to be a bit outspoken. You want them to have a bit of something about them. He's got that. Outside the ring, gives it the big tick. And again, Spencer, exactly what you said. Going into this fight thinking, right, is it all just chat or has he got a bit about him? And you're watching him setting his shots up, the way he's working, the confidence, fantastic. He gets all the ticks in the world. Obviously, he got a clipped and he went down. And I thought that maybe because he's took his eye off the ball a little bit in the fight, got a little bit negligent in there. Yeah. My only concern is Ryland Charlton's he's a guy that normally fights at 140, right? So he's small, and you could tell with the size difference when they were in there. I want to see Florian Marku now against a proper 147, a talented 147, someone like a Chris Congo or something like that. Stick him in with him and let's have it, man. Let's see what happens there.
I think that's what they will do. And talking about Florian Marku and his character, the way that he is, like you say, in bubbles, he's charismatic. He's got this massive social media following. But you know what? He's the type of fighter that likes to put pressure on himself so he performs better. So he's one of those fighters that thinks, you know, some fighters, they crumble under pressure. He's the flip side where he adds pressure onto himself to bring the best out in himself. And that's the way that he operates, Florian. I know him actually, and he's that type of guy. But if he can get it right, I'm telling you, mate, he's got there's a lot of Albanians in the world, man, and every single one of them follow Florian Marku. This guy has got the biggest support you've ever seen. Like, if he was to set up a YouTube channel and stream the fights in Albania, pay-per-view, he'd only have to have a couple of fights that he could retire. This is how popular he is. It's crazy. I thought it was a great performance. I loved the way that he adjusted from this all-out 100 miles per hour, throwing a million punches, trying to get his opponent out of there. He was sitting back. He was taking his time. When the time was there, he was jumping on Charlton. And I thought it was a punch-perfect performance, really, like you say. And I think it was good that actually he got floored because he took his eye off the ball because he was in total control and he got a little bit cocky and got caught. I think that's actually good for him moving forward. He could definitely put a mark in the welterweight division. Definitely. I mean, Conor Benn weren't too impressed, to be fair. He was sitting there talking about other fighters and he's got bigger fish to fry, but something like that. Could you imagine like a Conor Benn versus Marku fight? Stylistically, that would be good. I mean, that would be good.
It should come with a health warning, that fight, man. It's just violence, isn't it?
I like the way Marku was talking to him throughout the whole fight as well. I mean, you know, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because, you know, Alison was sitting with me, my wife, and she was like, is he allowed to do that? It's like, no, not
really.
You know, the ref wasn't. I like a bit of that. I like a bit of character, as you say. You know, it's good to see that, isn't it? It's a bit of spirit, mate, fighting spirit.
Guys, all of us will sit here, and one of our favourite fighters was Nazim, right? Yeah. That's what we want, man. Give us a bit of razzmatazz.
I grew up with Naz. Like, we boxed at Young England together, so we sparred many rounds together. And like, as an amateur, he was like that as an amateur. So like the England coach, Ian Irwin at the time, he used to say everyone had to be in the hall for, like, you train 8 times a day. I mean, you had to be in the hall ready to go. And if anyone was late, because you're coming from your rooms or whatever, anyone was ever late, couldn't train. Naz would continually bowl up when he wanted. He'd go get out, but he just had that about him. When, you know, even when we were kids, like when we were 15, you just look at him and go, "He's going to be a fucking superstar." Him, I know he is. Like he's everything you want to be. And like to spar, he was a complete nightmare because you'd be throwing punches, and all of a sudden he'd be standing behind you. He was one of them. You go, "How the fuck's he got from there to there?" He was just so super talented. Like, but yeah, wow, man. He brought everything with him, didn't he? Like he was as good. I think to be a superstar in our sport, you've got to be as good outside the ring as you have in it. And I think that's what makes a fighter. Yeah, Marku's got a little bit of that. He's got a little bit of charisma about him.
Yeah, man. Absolutely. Mate, I say that all the time about fighters. You spend the time in the gym, you perfect your craft, and you do the business in the ring. And obviously that's what we fall in love with first and foremost. No, that you've got to be able to do that first and foremost. But when you get an opportunity and someone sticks a microphone in your face, rock that microphone, man. Make me fall in love with you even more, because that just takes it to that superstar status that you're talking about.
But Naz was like that, right? So if we were standing here speaking, like say we was like in a room now, not on the Zoom, we're just chatting the way that we was, and like one of the, I say I was Naz, he'd be just chatting the way that he's chatting with us and just totally normal. And if a camera come over, boom, like, this guy come on, you go, who the fuck's he? I've just been speaking to. He was just like the complete showman. Do you know what I mean? He was just so good at what he'd done, and that's why we'll always remember him. He's a great fighter, good character, man. Yeah.
Listen, Adam, I've got to ask you as well. Saturday night, Robbie Davis Jr. What did you make that performance versus Gabriel Valenzuela? There was something a bit odd going on in the corner, wasn't it? I don't know if you're aware of it. Brendan Ingle was getting him to fight southpaw, and at some point, Robbie Davis said he wanted to go back to orthodox, and Brendan was putting his foot down. It seemed to be
Dominic.
Something weird was going on in that corner, wasn't it? At one point, Robbie was trying to talk to him, and he weren't quite sure what he was trying to say. It seemed a little bit miscommunication. What was your take on it all?
Exactly that, man. It was weird. I mean, I was at home watching it, so we were privy to that corner microphone that gets stuck in there, and he was whispering at one particular point, wasn't he? And you think
it was round 3, and he was saying basically in round 3, this is not working for me. I want to switch back to orthodox, because he was a natural orthodox.
Yeah.
And Dominic was saying, no, stay southpaw, stay. But I couldn't understand why he was doing that. It wasn't
the key thing.
He was getting the key with the right hand.
There you go. That's the key thing, what you just said there, right? He is an orthodox fighter. He's a switch hitter. He's not a natural southpaw. And when he throws those shots from a southpaw stance, he actually leaves himself quite square, which is obviously a massive target for that big right hand that you're just talking about. So I don't blame him for thinking, this ain't working. I'm getting pikes every single time. Let's go back into an orthodox stance. So it did seem weird, man.
Yeah.
It
seemed weird. He was told to do it for the whole 12 rounds. If that was me in my corner, I'd be going to my trainer, fuck it, I've got to switch back, mate, because it's not working for me. You know, it's like he was having mild successes and all that. I asked Johnny Nelson, actually, who was working in the studios, me and Johnny are good mates, and I said to him, like, what was, like, you're from that gym, what was Dominic thinking, like, because you could see it weren't working. He was gagging to get back to orthodox. What was it? Johnny said, look, I just don't know. I don't know what the thought process was behind it. Perhaps Dominic felt that he was getting success being a southpaw, but he didn't look comfortable. That's the thing. No. If you're going to box southpaw, you've got to look comfortable doing it. And he looked like he was, as you're right, Adam, he was square on and against the southpaw with arms that were like go-go gadget arms, wouldn't they? They would have normally long arms, wouldn't they? It was like, and when you're boxing a guy that's got abnormally long arms, he goes to throw the shot and all of a sudden it's hitting you in the face and you think, fuck, how's that? Because you judge, you're slipping, you're sliding, and you can judge it. When someone's got long arms, you misjudge it all the time. And that seems to be what was happening with that right hand. And it was strange tactics. It really was. I'd love to know what the thought process with Dominic was there, if I'm honest.
Well, it's going to be interesting what happens going forward, isn't it? You know, they've obviously had a disagreement in that corner of how they should have approached that fight. And Robbie, now, I think that was the first fight. I know they've been together, working together for about a year, but I think that was actually their first fight where Dom's in the corner working with him. So when they go back to the gym, Robbie has to fully understand why Dominic Ingle told him to do that. Yeah. And then he has to be on board with why he's done it. And you know, and if he's not, then, geez, man, it's his career. It's only a short career. He's got to make some big decisions, hasn't he, you know?
Well, he's at that stage of his career now that he's not at the beginning of his career now. He's not a prospect now. You know, he's in the twilight years, if you like. He's just, you know, his wife's just had a baby. They're at that stage of their life where you go now, you know, you've got responsibilities and you've got to make the most out of this game, you know, now and as soon as you can. And it was a bit of a setback, if I'm totally honest with Davis. You know, it was a majority decision, but he still did lose the fight. And you're right. I think if he goes, you know, he's got to listen. Dominic might have his reasons for that we don't know about. So, you know, it's not like I'm here slagging him off. I'm just saying I think it was very strange, and it's going to be interesting to see what Robbie's thoughts on that were.
Spence, sorry, I realised I said Brendan Ingle earlier, and of course it's his son Dominic we're talking about. Do you think there's a case for Robbie doing his own thing for maybe last couple of rounds? You know, if he feels it's not working for him and he's fighting southpaw, and Dominic Selling fights out. Do you think there's an argument that he should have just gone out and done his own thing for a couple of rounds?
Right. I mean, so if that was me, and I was in that position, and my trainer had said to me, no, stay southpaw, and it wasn't working for me like it wasn't working for him. Last couple of rounds, especially because it was getting a bit painful, he was getting bashed up a little bit, I would have switched. I would have gone, fuck it, I'm going back. I've got to try my other way. He didn't box around orthodox. And I would have said, look, listen, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But it was broke. So you've got to fix it. And if the corner's instructions are not working, I'm going to go, I've got to take this in my own hands. I'm my own man. I've got to do something. That's what I would have done. You know, when I was boxing, my trainer said, jump under a bus and jump under a bus. If he said jump, I'd say how high. It was like that because you put every bit of trust into your trainer. But for 12 rounds, man, when things are not working and I'm doing it in a way that I don't normally do it, I'm going to revert back to what I know.
Yeah, but having said that, Spence, that would have been a massive call, wouldn't it, for Robbie Davis to have made? And as you said, you know, like you trust your trainer, don't you? And you jump under a bus for him. So if he's saying stay southpaw,
I understand. Yeah, I understand you following instructions and all that, but I'm just saying my personal thing. I'd always follow instructions, always. But I've never been in a situation like that because I mean, 12 rounds is a long time to box a way that's not working for you, especially when you're boxing a guy, you know, like that who's long arms and he had that unusual, like he was throwing that jab and that right hand it went unusually straight. Like normally right hands sort of come round the side. His one was like pump through the middle. And for me, it was like, I would have said, listen, mate, I've got to go. Give me a round. Let me go. I'm going to do a round. I have to do a round, you know, as an orthodox. But yeah, it's interesting to see. It was another unusual night, really, in fight camp, wasn't it? We had the week before, and then we got this week. Yeah, it's strange things happening in these fight camps.
On that fight, though, how good was it to see some decent scorecards? You know, we saw an away fighter last week get skinned. I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, I totally agree, mate. We've not only seen some unusual results, but we've seen some mad scoring. Mad scoring. What was that one last week? Who was that?
Zelfa Barrett, the 118, 111.
Martinez.
Yeah, that was awful, wasn't it? Absolutely awful.
Come on. And I quizzed Robert on that as well. We done it on TalkSport. We got Robert Smith on, and I said, Robert, like in situations like this, and we keep seeing this lately, where scores where you think, right, if Silver Barrett got away with a draw, you go, fuck me, he was lucky there. So I thought he lost it by a couple of rounds. But to go like the scores were like, what were they, like 1-1-8, 1-1-11, 7 rounds?
Twice, yeah.
Yeah, come on, mate. That's so I said to Robert, does a judge get pulled in front of the board for that? Because they're meant to be A-star judges. You know, just pulled in front of the board and say, right, explain how you've come up with such a wide decision when everybody can clearly see that this fight was very close and should have gone the other way, in my opinion. But he said, no, you know, it's the judges, you know, we was happy with it. How can you be happy with that? Because to me, that was not, look, it was a scoring that took away from Barrett's win, if I'm honest, because had it been really close scoring, he won on the split and the other two were 1-1-4, 1-1-3 or something like that, you'd have gone, all right, yeah, he pulled back well and last quarter of the fight he done well, but that scoring, man, was bad.
Adam, do you get the same discrepancies in the UFC as much? I mean, if you had to talk generally in terms of scoring, do you think they get it more right more often than boxing? Boxing's seen this over and over again over the years. Do you think UFC is sort of can you say generally is it fairer scoring? Do you get more accurate scoring in UFC? I guess is the question.
You do get mad ones, but do you know something? It's so weird that you've asked me that question because recently on one of the trips to Fight Island, I sat down with Mark Goddard, who's like one of the top referees in mixed martial arts, and he trains a lot of the judges of how to go about scoring on the unified rules and what have you. And he gave me a free lesson, which is, you know, he does these seminars and stuff. But we sat down over a pint and I said, right, let's score a fight, and we're going through it. And he was identifying the things that I should be looking out for as a judge in mixed martial arts, because I'm coming from the mentality of scoring a boxing match when it's totally different, the way that the things that he's looking out for. And in essence, the main thing that they're looking out for is damage. You can basically, in an MMA round, which is a 5-minute round, jab somebody for 4 minutes, and you're winning the round on your jab, and you're thinking, all right, they've steamed this for 4 minutes. But if somebody comes in with 2 massive elbows, you end up on the deck, you get a bit of ground and pound, the round ends. Who inflicted the most amount of damage in that period of time is the person that you are looking at to be scoring that in a 10-9 situation. They've also got a good, the unified rules also have wider discrepancies when it comes to scoring, which I think boxing needs to have a little bit of a look at, because you can have a really razor thin round that scored 10-9, and then you can have a dude box somebody's ears off for 3 minutes, and that's also 10-9, which I don't think is fair. I think that needs to be looked at. Maybe there's a 10-8 situation there and what have you. That's what the UFC do. So if someone dominates a round for a full 5 minutes, it's quite obvious that they've absolutely given someone a good hiding for 5 minutes. That's a 10-8 over a 10-9, rather than a razor thin victory in that 5 minute period. There are certain occasions where you're looking at it and you think, oof, somebody's got that wrong. But now that I have understood what the judges are looking out for, it's very, very rare, mate, in mixed martial arts. So therefore, I think it would be really good if people like Robert Smith from the British Boxing Board of Control, if there is some type of education, if there's some type of transparency, when someone comes up with a mad scorecard like 118, 111, what did they score? What? Well, the rules say this, ding, 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 ding. That's how I scored it. And then the fans at home can sit there and go, actually, yeah, you're right, mate. Fair enough. Fair enough.
They're never held to account, are they, Adam? As
that's it.
And, they're so anonymous. I mean, obviously we know we are because we're in the game, and you can put a face to a name. But most people watching at home, they ain't got a clue, have they? The judges are and where they're from, and
I think if people understood how someone's getting to that point, and they can agree or disagree with it, I think it helps the enjoyment of the game a little bit more, because how many fans last week with the Zelfa thing, and then obviously maybe they had a little bit of a gripe with the refereeing in the Josh fight. How many people go, I'm done with boxing. I'm done with boxing. This is what boxing's all about. Lads come over here, he's boxed his kid's ears off, and they might have had Kiko winning, and then they go, and they've robbed him. So why should I watch this? And I think if there's more transparency, fans can understand that more, and then it helps grow the sport, man. That's what we all want, isn't it? We want more people loving this nonsense that we're into every week.
That's a great point. I mean, someone should ask Robert Smith that, shouldn't they? I think it's definitely something they should consider, Adam. As you say, I think the more you let people in, the more educated they can become, and then they can make their own opinions. And as you say, they can agree or not agree. Yeah. And it's so subjective, isn't it? But at least you know what someone has based their decision on, and
absolutely,
they'll be prepared to back it up. It's a great point.
They've got to change. This was the argument we was having with Robert last week. I said, listen, something has to change. It's all right saying, it's subjective scoring and all that, but when you can clearly see, and we've seen so much of it in the last year or so in boxing, where you go, this kid's come over and he's not going to get the result, and you go, how do you keep coming up with those scores and they're so wide? As a boxing fan, I'm sitting there thinking, am I losing my shit here, or did he clearly win that? Because you are getting some bad results, to the point of where it used to be like if you went over to America, you'd have to get the knockout to get the draw. It's sort of becoming like that a little bit here with a couple of the fights. And I think that something does need to change with the scoring. I think a lot of people will agree with me as well. Listen, Eddie Hearn himself was disgusted with the scores. He said it himself, didn't he, at ringside? But that may be a way forward. I've never thought about that, Adam. Like you say, a razor tight round and a wide round is both scored 10-9 in boxing. So unless you get a knockdown, it won't go down as a 10-8, very rarely anyway. It's interesting that.
I know that. Listen, we saw some bad judging in that Broner fight the weekend. I don't know if you boys watched that, but it were absolutely nonsense.
It's crazy.
But the worrying thing is, I mean, I remember doing an interview with Teofimo Lopez about 2 years ago. High as a kite on him, saying, "I'd love you to come to the UK, man. Want to see you fight the guys." And this is when Luke Campbell was still in that thing in lightweight. What possibilities of fights and stuff are? And he went, "I ain't coming to the UK until you sort your judging out." So I was like, taken aback by it, thinking, hang on, if superstars from around the world are thinking that, that's worrying for us. We want them here, don't we? We want to see him at Wembley. We want to see him at Manchester Arena and all that. We want those guys here fighting. I mean, how good was it when Regis Prograis fought Josh Taylor? That was an amazing fight. But just imagine if Regis Prograis went, "I'm not doing it in England, mate. You've got bad judging."
Yeah.
We miss out on those things.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. Listen, let's move on, mate. Let's talk about boxing coming up. Boxing, the penciled in for the future. We spoke about this earlier on, actually. We've got to talk about Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. We're close, mate. We're very close.
How long have we been close, boys? Come on, Spence. You're on the inside. You're in with the TV boys, Spence. What's the crack here? Is it happening or what?
I'll tell you how close we are. This is how close we are to this fight happening in June, sometime in June, possibly the end of June. But I think we're as close as a flip of a coin for who walks in the ring first and what name goes on the program first. That's where we're at. So what I'm saying is I think that all the juicy bits have been agreed, like percentages on the fight, where the fight, and not where the fight's taking place. I think that's been narrowed down to, it looks like the Middle East that fight's going to happen. But I think it's just, I heard Eddie doing an interview somewhere as well saying, listen, how can you flip a coin over Zoom? We have to meet in person. But it's important. And he's right in what he says. It is very important of a fight of that magnitude, who goes in the ring first and second. Because if you go in the ring first, I've lost a flip of a coin in a title fight before when I was boxing for a title. And I had to go in the ring first. Fuck me, man. It's not a nice place to be when you're waiting for your opponent for 15 minutes and you've got the biggest fight of your life. Like, it seems like a lifetime. You know, it's so, I do get it. I do understand it. But I think that's how close we are. I don't think it's a case of if the fight's going to happen. I think it's more sort of when the fight's going to happen, at what date it's going to happen. And I think June. I think June, man.
Book of flights, boys. Saudi. Book our flights. Let's get in there, eh?
I think June and I think Saudi, my man.
Mate, listen, I couldn't give a monkey's where this thing is. Let's just get this on. We need to see it, don't we?
Adam, who would you back on that if you had to put your money on anyone for that fight? It's getting tighter and tighter, isn't it? I mean, a couple of years ago, you definitely would have said Tyson all day long, but AJ's development and his power, and you can never discount that, can you? So, come on, who's going to win that fight, Adam?
Oh, mate, just if it's gun to the head at the moment, I'd say Tyson. I'd say Tyson on points is what I'd say, gun to the head. Yeah. But you're right, Jake, man. There's so many things where I think in my head, AJ might clip him. He might clip him, you know, early doors, and then Tyson's got to get off the deck and he's got to recoup all that type of stuff. I want all these scenarios. I want all them scenarios. I want it to be back and forth and just to be captivating. That Klitschko fight for AJ was one of the greatest things I've ever seen in my life, man. Absolutely. We need something like that, don't we?
But listen, the danger is we might see another Tyson Fury Klitschko, which I loved. I really loved that fight, but people were complaining about that fight. But for me, it was just Fury's technical brilliance. I could appreciate what he was doing on the night. He was blocking him out. But if Fury does that to AJ, which he could possibly do, I mean, people would be moaning about that as well, wouldn't they? They'd be like, no, you know, he wasn't doing anything. You know, he's just, you know, dancing around, which is, you know, which Fury can do all night long. I wouldn't mind seeing that. I think that would be a masterclass, but that wouldn't be a fan favorite. Like you say, you want to see him go down. You want to see him come back. You want to see him going at it in about round 6 or 7, just balls to the wind. You want to stand in the middle of the round.
Look at us thinking of ourselves rather than the health of the men that are getting in there. Come on, lads. What's up with you?
You know, in recent times, and we saw it in his last fight, didn't we, against Pulev, is that what he's done now is he's more thoughtful about his approach. So he takes his time, he waits, he's learnt now not just to rush in and try and land a big shot. And what he does now is he puts those shots together. And this is the difference between someone like AJ and someone like Deontay Wilder. Wilder throws single shots, boom, and whatever. And Fury done amazing to climb off the floor for all that. But what Joshua does is, he's very explosive because he's so athletic. He's very explosive, but he throws 5 and 6 shots at a time. And when you get hit with an accumulation of shots like that, bam, 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 they're fucking hard to recover from because the senses go. I mean, I don't know if you boys have noticed how small those gloves are and how big them boys are, but like 6 of them pummeling you in the face, and it's going to be hard to recover. So that's the reason why I think that Joshua wins the fight, because I just think that you're right. You know, Fury could box his ears off and stay out on the outside, but I think a fight that magnitude and knowing the fight that Fury is, he will want to prove a point. He'll want to get involved and go, right, I'm going to beat Joshua at his own game, because that's what Fury does. And I think emotions will play a part. I said this actually to Tyson Fury as well on Talk Sport. He come on, he's like, what do you mean? What do you mean I'm going to lose the fight? I'm like, oh, why have they brought him on? I think just you're going to get emotions play a part in it, and I think you're going to... And he just started laughing at me and said, I'll box his ears off, I'll go for him like butter. And he could be right, but I just got this thing inside me that says, AJ does it. it's interesting, man, because we've all got a theory, right? And we all can find and see a way. Like Jake's got his theory about Fury and how Fury wins. I say about Joshua, you've got a load of splinters up your arse because you're sitting on the fence. But but what I'm saying is, until that first bell goes, none of us know. But and that's the beauty of this fight,
mate. Look at what happened with Wilder Fury. Yeah. Tyson Fury sat in front of the media all that week, mate, all week, and he says, "I'm going to knock him out, lads. I'm going to go forward and I'm going to knock him out." And I'm interviewing the dude going, "He's on the wind up here. What's this about here? Tyson, we know what you're doing. You're on the back foot. It's tippy-tappy stuff. You're staying out of the way of that big bronze bomber. Job done, man. We'll go home on a 12-point decision." And look what he did. Yeah. Do you know something? That is the beauty of this game. We can sit here, we can make predictions, and we can be convinced that this is going to happen. And when the total opposite happens, I could not be more delighted, mate. I love being sat there going, I've got this so wrong, and this is amazing. That's the best bit about it.
That's what the beauty of this fight is, isn't it? It's like, not only is it because it's for the undisputed world heavyweight title, it was last won by Lennox Lewis over 20 years ago. So that's like, for one champion is like everyone's dream. But none of us know, man. It is one of those that, like, if Fury goes out there and knocks him out, it knocks AJ out, it's not going to be like one of those, I'm surprised. And vice versa, if AJ does it to Fury, I think the only surprise that happens for me in that fight is that one of them ends it early. Like, then I'll go, fucking hell, like, do you know what I mean?
Do you think?
But,
mate, I think any scenario is possible with these guys.
Any scenario, you're right. Actually, just ignore what I just said. That's shit. All right.
Yeah, but look at the energy levels now of us. We've just gone like that through the gears, aren't we? Talking about this fight. Come on, man.
That's the power of the.
Just walk in at the same time, lads. Walk in at the same time. Nobody's asked. Just get in the ring and let's have it.
One from each side, and then just meet in the middle. That's it. Listen, Adam, let's get to you a little bit on this podcast. People listening will obviously know all of your work and all that, but just about you personally. Like, how did you get into broadcasting? How did you sort of, what was your way into it, and how did you get to where you are today?
I feel like Chunk from the Goonies now, giving you a life story, boys. Here we go. No, I started when I was about 15 years of age.
Oh, I'm just going to go and make a cuppa. I'll see you in a minute.
Yeah, do that, man. I'll be here for ages.
Yeah, go on.
I remember when I was about 15 years of age, you have that chat with your parents, don't you? What are you going to do with your life? You know what I mean? Yeah. And at the time, in the middle of the 90s, Chris Evans was prominent. He was booming. He was on the radio. He was on the telly doing TFI Friday and all that type of stuff. And I just said to my dad, I'm going to try and do what that guy's doing, right? And he had a laugh about it and what have you. But that's how it kind of started, because I was just fascinated with conversations with people. That's it. Not necessarily sports stars or whatever. It was entertainment, music, you name it. I just wanted to have chats with interesting people. Yeah. And I cracked on doing my mates 18th and 21st DJing and all that type of stuff. I ended up becoming a nightclub DJ, got to a decent level at that. And then I got an opportunity at a local radio station to me called Rock FM. It wasn't a rock station. It was more like what you class as a capital, playing that type of music. So I started there, went through the schedule, got on the breakfast show, and then it all just kicked off for me, man. I'd started building this breakfast show, which went quite big, won a couple of decent awards, which got a bit more recognition, ended up moving to Radio 1 and a couple of other stations and what have you. And in and around all that time, obviously being a fan of all sports, football and boxing prominently, your paths then just come across certain people, don't they? And I remember when I was working on the local radio station, I came across a fighter, Spence, you might be familiar with, called Paul Burke, who used to be the British and Commonwealth lightweight champion.
Yeah, I remember Paul really well back in the 90s, when he mid-90s, well, early 90s to mid-90s. Yeah.
So he had set up a gym in Preston, and he randomly became my trainer. So we were just working out together and all that type of stuff. And his story is absolutely mad. Just obviously getting to the levels that he got to, the guys that he ended up fighting. And there's a sad story connected to this, because one of his opponents sadly passed away off the back of a bout. And these conversations just came out from working out together. And I just fell for it there and then, man. I said, why am I not doing this? You know, I love sport. I love these two sports in particular. This is what I want to be doing. So after completing what I wanted to do on music radio, the opportunity came up to to work on the Olympics in 2012. And I put the application in with some of the broadcasters and what have you, saying I'm available to do this, that, and the other. Really wanted to work on the boxing and all that. And I got the opportunity, which came back. He said, right, you can do some presenting at the XL Arena where the boxing was. Sadly, we've got loads of guys that want to do the boxing, so there's only a few bits and bats. Randomly, I did Oscar Valdez's fight. We'll get onto him after that knockout at the weekend in a minute, but I did one of his fights at the 2012 Olympics. But I also did table tennis, judo, weightlifting, all sorts of random stuff, mate. You asked me about Chinese table tennis stars from 2012, and I'm the guy. I'm on it. So I did all that. And absolutely fell for it head over heels. It's hard not to when you're around the Olympics, isn't it? Yeah. So I remember finishing that, and I was still at Radio 1 at the time. And I just said, I had a management team at the time. I had an agent, and I just said, I don't want to go back to music radio. I was going on holiday at that time to my brother-in-law's wedding. So when I come back, I'm going to have my notice in with the music radio guys, because I've done everything that I wanted to do there. I want to really pursue getting into sports radio. And I came back, and he put a couple of feelers out, and Absolute Radio in London came back to me and said, do you want to do rock and roll football with Ian Wright? Like literally the minute I got off the plane, and I went, this is mint. Wow. This is where I'm going. So listen, you know Wrighty, personality for days, that lad, hasn't he? You know what I mean? So all you got to do is set him up and away he goes. And that was just brilliant. We did like a Saturday phone-in thing where we're taking calls from football fans coming away from games and all that type of stuff. And that was it. I was away. Moved into working for TalkSport. Originally started working on the football and what have you. And from the inside then, I was constantly nagging away. Come on, guys, we need to do more boxing, because they weren't covering fights at the time. They weren't doing a lot of stuff. 5 Live were taking the majority of those fights, and he was nagging, we need a regular boxing show. Hey, can we do an MMA show and all this type of stuff? And it was kind of falling on deaf ears a little bit. And that's where Fight Disciples came from, because I felt frustrated. I had all this that I wanted to talk about, and I'm sure you guys have felt these emotions. You just want to have that conversation, but there wasn't an outlet. I wasn't getting the outlet to be able to do it. So Nick, who I work with, Nick Pete, he's former editor at Boxing News and Fighters Only magazine, which is a big UFC magazine. He was feeling frustrated as well because his management in the MMA game weren't going down the digital route that he wanted to go down. So me and him just ended up having a bit of a chat over a beer, and I said, come on, man, let's just have a crack. Let's just do it. And it'll just be a weight off our shoulders. It'll be somewhere to go and vent our frustrations on a week by week basis, you know? And for 9 months, that's what it was. It was just 2 lads sat in a room mourning. It's what it was. And talking about the things that we love about this game. And then after about 9 months, I looked back at the body of work that we'd knocked out, and I thought, we're not taking this seriously, man. You know what I mean? We've got so much access to all these people because we know them all. And again, like you guys, you're getting guests on left, right, and so you kind of take it for, I don't want to say take it for granted, but at the time I did. I'll be honest with you, after 9 months, I'm sat there going, we could just ring Bellew up and Bellew would come and be on the show and all those types of random things, you know, being based in Liverpool. So after about 9 months, I started taking it seriously. And I thought, right, okay, let's try and make a few quid out of this and use this as a platform to then push ourselves forward on the platforms that we really want to be on, you know, and what we believe that we can be on. So after that, as you guys know, Fight Disciples then won that British Podcast Award, and then won it again the year after. But in that year between those two awards,
we was actually there that year, weren't we? We were there that night.
We weren't nominated.
I think you presented it. You presented the second one to Nick, didn't you? Yeah. So yeah, in between those 2 award wins, me behind the scenes was consciously of pushing what we were doing as a partnership to TalkSport, to BT, to everybody. So listen, we could do this on a mainstream platform. TalkSport then got back into the game. They took the Anthony Crolla-Ricky Burns fight.
Yeah.
So when they took the Anthony Crolla-Ricky Burns fight, they took it on really short notice. And I'm sure they were looking at other presenters to be able to do it, but I was just there in the right moment at the right time. They said, yeah, do us a favor, look after this week. And then luckily, I must have had an half decent show, mate, because then we've just cracked on with the TalkSport thing. And as you know, the Wilder Fury stuff from last year has just been nominated for an award, which is great. But then off the back of that, people then start to take notice, don't they? And then the BT guys came along and said, you guys do MMA. Do you fancy coming and helping us do this, that, and the other? And that's just gone. through the roof, man. So yeah, the journey's been mad. It's been starting in nightclubs, DJing, into music radio, getting out of that, trying to rebrand myself as a sports presenter, and then now we're, I think, in a place where I kind of always have wanted to be. It just took me 20 years to get here, you know.
Yeah, that's a great story, Adam. It's a great example of like using your initiative and all that, because people look at you, don't they? I think in all walks of life, and they say, "Oh, he's a lucky bastard. Look at him. He's sort of, you know, look what he's got. Look what he's doing. Look what he does for a living." But you know, that's what the story you've told there, Adam, and the way in which you got there. You've made your own luck there, haven't you? And you know, you've driven it forward. Use your initiative. I think that's a great example, mate. Hats off to you. It's fantastic.
Yeah, man. I think, well, I appreciate that. And people don't see like the 20 years that goes into what's happening right now, do they? They see you pop up on TV and you're interviewing Tyson Fury, you're interviewing Conor McGregor, and like you just said, they say, best job in the world. Well, hang on a minute. For 20 years, I've been sleeping on my mate's sofas because I couldn't afford an hotel in London whilst I was trying to do a voiceover job, you know what I mean? Just to pay me rent and all these types of random things, you know? And that was going on regular, you know? Every single week, every single weekend, coming out of a nightclub at 6 a.m, driving back from Sheffield to Preston to go and do a radio show at 10 o'clock, finish at 2 o'clock, then go home and see my family, my mum and dad and whatever, you know. Oh, hang on, you're DJing again tonight, son. So you've only had like 4 hours kip, away you go. And that's it. You know what I mean? I think it comes down to desire, doesn't it? How badly do you want it? And if you want it badly enough, you'll make them sacrifices and you'll get
it is a crazy life, isn't it? And it's one of those that sort of you got to stick with it, because you have your ups and downs in broadcasting. It is one of those where people go, yeah, you get money for that. You go, yeah, but you might only do it once or twice a month. And sometimes you just think, fuck, there's got to be other ways of earning money here. Like, you got to do something that's a little bit more consistent. We had a similar sort of journey, Jake, with this podcast, didn't we? Because we were just pals. And obviously I used to box. Jake's a massive boxing fan. And we had that sort of conversations like, fuck, we should be doing something with this. Like, we could hit a good audience. With Jake's, like, because he's got a different audience to obviously what I have, it would just make for a great podcast. Well, we didn't know what the fuck we was doing at the beginning, did we? It was like down to Ross Segal, who's our producer, who come up with the idea of saying, why don't you two do a podcast? We was like, yeah, why not? And it sort of, it just grew from there, because we was getting guest after guest, and we was like, you know what? I found it a release on a Monday night. We record on a Monday, goes out on a Wednesday, and on a Monday night, I'm going around Jake's. I mean, we're not living in those times now, so I'll do it over Zoom, but go around Jake's, we'll sit in these little box for a couple of hours, and then you come out feeling like fucking Superman. I'd go around there feeling flat as a pancake, but it was just a good release, and it was great. And that's how ours started, really, wasn't it? It was a good journey that we've had.
Yeah, I think it's just anything of any worth comes out of passion, doesn't it? Like you know what Adam was saying. Listen, where do you record your podcast now? You're like on the road. Do you now, Adam, like, so when you're out and about?
Mate, so we started by hiring a proper radio studio in Liverpool at Radio City. And like you said, we're in these mad times now. So I bought all the equipment under the sun. I'm sat this room that I'm in now, the basement of my house. You know, every man and his dog's in this for the last year with Zoom calls and interviews and all that type of stuff that I've set up. So at the moment, this is how we're working. You know, we're working over this Zoom situation. But then I've got enough equipment to be able to take with me to Fight Island or to the Vegas things and all those types of stuff. So at the drop of a hat, because you lads know, you've been at all these events, you never know who's going to randomly turn up. I remember last year in like the Vegas press room when I can't remember whether it was Wilder Fury, but it was one of the fights that we were out there for. And like Jamel Herring had just turned up and you'd just be sat down there and you're thinking, huh? Get the bloody microphone. Let's get down there and let's have a chat, man. Let's get it going. And that's the beauty of podcasting, isn't it? You know, you can. There's no set location. You just do it. Just get on with it and have some fun with it.
And there's no set script either, is there? It's like you say, like you'll have your bullet points on the guest that you're getting on or whatever. But that's what I love about podcasts. Is you just run off on stories and have little chats, and something will be said, and then you'll divert off onto something like that. Then you can come back to what you're talking about. That's what I love about doing podcasts.
Plus, as well, in this game, when you're on a broadcaster, people automatically think that you're affiliated with the fighters that are on that broadcast platform. So they think there's a place of bias every time you make a pick or whatever it may be. And that's genuinely never the case. Nobody at BT's ever told me you've got to pick these fighters or you've got to pick this or you've got to pick that. You know what I mean? Being in that podcast independent format, like we're all obviously operating in, it's just brilliant just to be able to be honest. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No BS and just have it. This is what I really think, mate. If you
Yeah,
don't have to agree with me, this is what I think.
But I think that's what listeners, that's what they connect with Adam as well, isn't it? That's, for me, listening to podcasts, I like the ones, just no filter, no bullshit. They're just talking directly to you, and they're not trying to present an image or something that they're not. It's just pure honesty, and I think if people like it, they really like it, and if they don't, fair enough. They go.
Yeah, man. I think if Jake froze there. Oh, he's back. He's back. Exactly that. People are having these conversations in the pub. Well, when they were allowed in the pubs with their mates, aren't they? At the whatever at the work when they're at work with their pals. Oh, did you see the fights at the weekend? It's just great to be able to do it in this environment and try and make a bit of a living out of it. It's fantastic.
Yeah. Listen, Adam, if I'd have gone to your head and you had to choose UFC or boxing, and you could only watch one for the rest of your life, which would it be?
Oh, you dirty pig, man! What you doing to me? I think. Do you know something? And I'll always say this: when boxing gets it right, there is nothing better than boxing. Wilder Fury 2, come on Vegas, the setting, everything about it. That's it. Don't get better than that.
Quite week. The whole week, man.
Mate, and I'm bringing everything involved in that. You can bring in a Conor McGregor fight. You can bring in everything in. When the boxing guys get it right, when the matchmaking's on the money and the location's on the money, there is nothing better than boxing. Look at the weekend just gone. You've got to take your hat off to the matchmakers. Yeah, they got it absolutely nailed on. Boxing had a wonderful, wonderful weekend at the weekend, didn't we? We're not even talking about Oscar Valdez sparking Miguel Burchell. Unreal.
Yeah, that was a horrible knockout, wasn't it? Jesus Christ.
What a performance from him.
It was one of those shots that just landed so sweet. He was walking onto the shot and bam, it was like his left hook wide and he was just out before he hit the canvas, man. What a result. He can fight Oscar Valdez. He's really a serious fighter.
Answering your question properly, Jake, rather than sitting with splinters in my ass. Because I trust the UFC to make match after match after match after match, week after week after week, I'm going to go with the UFC, which is a shame because, like I said, when boxing gets it right, man, there is nothing better.
Yeah, but that's always something. There's always it's always going to have that advantage, UFC, in it, because of the way they're structured, the way that it's run. Boxing's so disparate and it's so many different people involved. It's so difficult to make these matches sometimes. But hopefully, as a result of COVID lockdown, I think it's maybe sunk in a little bit with Eddie Hearn and various promoters that you have to make these big fights. And let's not a loss is not the end of a career, isn't it? As we've seen with UFC, there's always that thing in boxing where they're trying to protect the it's sort of bullshit, isn't it? You're trying to attain something that's not realistic, and you're trying to protect boxers at the same time. It's just have great fights. It doesn't matter, does it? Really, at the end of the day.
I've got a great fight, a fantasy fight that I want to talk about actually. So this question for you as well, Adam. Adam Catterall versus Nick Peet. Who would win and why?
What weight? What weight is it? What's that?
Catch
weight. Listen, I'm making boil down, mate. If I could get him down, to super middle or something like that, I'd have a chance because he'd gas after 3. I just have to take a bit of punishment, and then I could box rings around him.
Nice, brilliant. We have to do one more while we're here as well. One that we always do with all our guests. I don't know if you've heard this one, but
yes, is this the gorilla thing?
Mike Tyson offered the zookeeper once £10,000 to get in and fight a prime silverback gorilla. A prime Mike Tyson versus a silverback gorilla. Who would win and why?
How big and how old is the gorilla?
Well, it doesn't matter.
Prime gorilla, isn't it?
Prime gorilla.
I love how Jake just said, "What are you talking about, man? It's a prime gorilla."
On the clock. We're talking alpha silverback naughty gorilla.
What are they, like 450 pounds muscle?
Yeah, that's it, mate. Listen, Tyson was ferocious. Late 80s, early 90s, he's ferocious. But he is not taking out a prime gorilla. In its absolute prime. It's just too big, too strong, as Carl Froch would say, mate. Too big, too strong.
Tyson putting those combinations together, whipping in those uppercuts and hitting him with those left hooks. You remember when he knocked out Trevor Berbick with that left hook? Boom! Hit him. Imagine that was the gorilla. I think the gorilla's gone, mate.
Nah, mate. Mate, they've got dense heads, haven't they? They've got dense heads. They can take it. Nobody's tested a gorilla's chin. And I reckon they've got nice, big, dense head, thick neck. I reckon it could take a Tyson whack, mate, and dish a bit back.
You reckon?
I think I'm backing the gorilla.
What TKO or KO?
Prime Tyson. No, I reckon it sparks him. I reckon it lays him out, mate. Lays him clean out.
We did a whole episode, Adam. We had a gorilla expert for a whole episode trying to work it out, and he seemed to think that the gorilla would basically rip him apart. Was what he said.
Gorilla by decapitation. Is that what he had?
I got into the expert's head because I said, yeah, but imagine if Tyson, done that movement where he slips and slides, he got inside the gorilla, hit him with a combination, stunned the gorilla, and before the gorilla could recover, he caught him again and knocked the gorilla out. And he went, well, it's actually possible. I went, there you go. You've answered my question. But he said the more likely scenario is that he would rip Tyson's body apart.
I'm with the expert. I'm with the expert, mate.
Yeah. All right, great.
All right, listen, Adam, we won't take up any more of your time. It's been such a pleasure to get you on the podcast, mate. We wanted to get you on for such a long time, such a knowledgeable, the way where you're placed within the sport, mate, is an amazing thing, and you do incredible work, BT, and for boxing, UFC, and we applaud you, mate, and thanks so much for coming on our podcast.
Lads, listen, it's an absolute pleasure. I'm thrilled that you invited me on, and we need to do more broadcasts together, because when we did Wilder Fury last year, it was absolutely mad as a box of frogs, wasn't it? You know what I mean? So we need to be doing stuff like that again, hopefully sometime soon, that we could do the Wilder, the Fury Joshua one. That'd be a good one.
That's the one, mate. We're available. We are available.
Same. Spence, you're in, Spence. You've just told us it's happening in June, lad. Get us on Saudi TV, son. Get the lads on Saudi TV. What you playing at?
But I've got to tag my power along as well. See, because he's a hardcore fan as well.
Absolutely.
So we've got to come as a package.
Full squad, mate. Listen, this is the biggest fight of all time, son. What are you playing at? You need a big team.
Brilliant, Adam. Thanks so much for your time, mate.
Appreciate it, lads. Thank you.
Yeah, God bless, mate. Cheers.
Bye.
Take care, mate.